I love doing videos on Malcolm Nance, and I am of the opinion that if Malcolm Nance had been a high-ranking employee of the Obama administration, that the whistle on the Russians would have been blown a long time ago, and President Obama's hand might have been forced to take action a lot earlier than just the past couple of days. Malcolm Nance, as early back as March of 2016, has been blowing the whistle about the Russians. And he has been so on top of this that he wrote a book that was released back in September of 2016, a full 2 months before the elections, outlining everything that the Russians were doing, and also calling out Donald Trump as being, quote unquote, a collaborator with the Russians. But apparently the Democrats had earplugs on because they didn't pay any attention to this guy. Now all of a sudden Barack Obama is taking action. Well, obviously in my mind, too little, too late. Here is an interview that MSNBC did with Malcolm Nance that I think basically tells the whole story as far as the inadequacy of the response, the public response in any regard, that Barack Obama has initiated against the Russians. And I hope that in the background, covertly, that a lot more is being done. Here we go.
News all day. In just the last few minutes, we've gotten a statement from President-elect Donald Trump saying that the Russia sanctions, commenting on them, saying it's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Nevertheless, in the interest of our country and its great people, I will meet with the leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the facts of this situation. Again.
Okay, and that just shows that Donald Trump really is paying no attention to this. This man should be taking security briefings every single day. Yet he wants to wait till next week on something as important as the Russians interfering with our political process. That just tells me that Putin, as I've indicated in the past, has got something on this guy, and he's in Vladimir Putin's pocket because he's trying to downplay this, where the majority of Americans think that this was very serious.
And this presidential executive order naming 4 operatives involved in placing sanctions on 2 Russian intelligence services. The president also ordering 35 Russian intelligence officials out of the United States within 72 hours. Joining us now is Malcolm Nance, MSNBC terrorism analyst, a 35-year veteran of naval intelligence, special operations, and homeland security. He's also the author of The Plot to Hack America, How Putin's cyber spies and WikiLeaks tried to steal the 2016 elections. Malcolm, good to have you with us. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Let me first play you a soundbite from December 16th. Take a listen to this. I'm going to get your reaction to it on the back end.
Our goal continues to be to send a clear message to Russia or others not to do this to us, because we can do stuff to you. But it is also important for us to do that in a thoughtful, methodical way. Some of it we do publicly. Some of it we will do in a way that they know, but not everybody will.
All right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of 10 being the most severe thing that the United States could have done, and in keeping in mind the statement that we just heard from President Obama that there are a lot of things we could do that not everyone's going to know about, where does what we saw today rank on that scale?
Well, pretty much this ranks somewhere along the 1 to 2 on a scale of 10 line.
That's pretty
placing
low.
sanctions against yeah, it's pretty low. Well, placing sanctions against Russian intelligence, the FSB and the GRU is almost a non-starter for the most part. But going after the individuals and putting them on that sanctions list essentially gives us the latitude to essentially sanction the Kremlin to a certain extent. The key question here is, will this last past 20 days? Will Donald Trump just lift these sanctions? And if he does, he's essentially saying that Russian intelligence is fine by him. But we could do very damaging things. That would be essentially war.
So you're
and
essentially,
that's what a 10 would be.
So you're essentially saying right now that what has happened today is more on the symbolic side, given the fact that President Obama is leaving in the matter of three weeks, and this could be reversed. But more importantly, that out of all of the tools in our arsenal, President Obama is not using nearly enough.
Well, what I am saying is that the cyber weapon systems that we have, and some people don't like that term, but when we use them in terms of cyber warfare, that's essentially what they are. They're the electronic equivalent of cruise missiles. I mean, things could get much, much worse, and it will be very interesting to see how Russia takes this. But let's just be honest about something here, and very clear. Russia conducted a cyber warfare attack on the fundamental structure of the American democratic system that has been in place for 240 years. Any other time in history, this would almost be considered an act of war. So the electronic warfare methodologies that the president may choose to use can be executed with just one keystroke. We may never know what those are.
So why are we not treating it as an act of war? Why is the president and others not treating this as an act of war if you're saying this was an act of war on our democratic system?
That's entirely a political question that has to be determined. I mean, it hasn't actually broken any physical infrastructure. People don't understand that cyber warfare is a battle space. It's a place where we have many, many billions of dollars in resources. It will be determined whether we actually conduct warfare against the GRU, Russian Military Intelligence, or FSB, the former KGB, or whether we go after the oligarchies of Russia or the cyber criminals themselves, which Russia uses as subcontractors. That's more likely to see, you're more likely to see a cyber warfare operation against that group of people who have illicit funds than you would against the Kremlin itself.
All right, let me ask you to put on your intelligence hat for a moment for us and help us decipher this Donald Trump statement. What do you make of it in terms of how he phrased it, in terms of saying, he doesn't make any reference to the sanctions, saying it's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things. Sounds like he's kind of dismissing this whole talk about sanctions and Russia hacking, but at the same time saying he's still going to be meeting with the leaders of the intelligence community next week in order to be updated on the situation and the facts.
Well, it's absolutely stunning that Donald Trump is going to wait a week to be briefed by the U.S. intelligence community. He could demand a brief at any time, 24/7, 365, but to put this off a week shows that he doesn't want to handle it. And it also shows, if we're physically attacked, is Donald Trump going to actually wait a week before he talks to intelligence? He needs to understand, and perhaps he doesn't even comprehend what cyber warfare is. And some of his past statements have shown that he really doesn't understand what's going on here. But another part of it is he doesn't seem to think that this is a great thing that, has happened, to American democracy. He seems to dismiss it out of hand. This is a fundamental attack on America's natural processes, which has never been done in the history of this nation. And for those people who are dismissing this as a leak or a rumor, then you don't understand that America has never had an enemy put their hand on the thumb of the scale of the American electoral process, and it could just as easily happen to Donald Trump.
All right, my good friend and one of the best in the business, Malcolm Nance, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Eamon.
Now, one thing about it, and something that's not now being put out there to a large scale publicly, the United States does have a lot of weapons and defenses at its beck and call. And for whatever reason, I guess, hasn't properly utilized them. But anyway, there was an announcement that wasn't really highly publicized that they are going to start to distribute some of these defenses, cyber warfare defenses, out to the major corporations and in some cases to the general public to stop this kind of bullshit. So now let's see what happens and it's going to be probably over the next week or so. The Russians are obviously going to issue some kind of a response, but I'm more interested in what's going to go down in the cyber warfare world. But again, Malcolm Nance, this guy is on it, and he is on it in a big way. Obviously, the Trump administration doesn't want this guy out there speaking truth to power. And in my opinion, the Obama administration, they missed it big time. And if this guy had been part of that administration in any kind of position of authority, the outcome of the election might, and I do say might, have been different. And I do say might.